Tadasana to start with. I want you to have the feet slightly apart for this pose today. So the feet will be hip width apart. So hip width is not as wide as some people think. Quite often people would take their legs really sort of to the outer sides of their hips. But you have to imagine that if you were just a skeleton dangling down, where would your leg bones dangle from? And you know, they're here, the top of the pelvis, where it meets the femur head is around here. So that's where your feet go. Spread your toes. Take the weight right back into the heel bones, lift your kneecaps, lift your thigh muscles, let your tailbone feel long, and now weight down with your fingers. Stretch the arms back a little without letting the rib cage pop forwards. So lift your frontal region, so the breastbone lifts, but the ribs don't extend forwards, the ribs stay back, and the tailbone stays long, and the legs are active. So you can do this with me. We're going to swing the arms up into Udvahastasana. So on an inhalation, stretch your arms up, extend into your fingertips, look up at your arms, make sure that your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist and your fingers are all in one line, and release down. Okay, breathe, fine inhalation, fine exhalation. We're going to go again, keeping the ribs back, the abdomen and the navel moving back to the spine as you take the arms up. So inhale through the nostrils, stretch up with the arms. If you need to check whether your arms are in line, then you can do so. Quite often one arm will go off to one side. Sometimes it's, you know, bending at the wrist. You'll find that one hand has a tendency to bend off to the side. So if you need to check, look up and check. Fingers together, thumbs to the edges of the fingers, look forwards, tailbone long, chest lifting, release the arms down. And we're going to go again. Inhale, stretch the arms up, move the upper arms towards the ears, let the shoulder blades release down your back ribs. Keep your abdomen back towards your spine, breathe through the nostrils and release down. Good. So we're going to complicate matters a little bit here by bringing a foam pad into the equation. So if you don't have a foam pad, you can just repeat what we were just doing. All right. If you do have a foam pad, then you're going to be using it. Everybody will bring their feet together now. So the feet come together and you spread your toes. So I'm just going to show how this works. You don't hold on to your foam pad with your fingers. Instead of which, your foam pad is held between your inner elbows and your inner wrists. So don't be surprised if it falls out. So I'll just show how we'll do. You'll extend up and stretch into your fingers and then come down again. So don't worry about it. If it hits your forehead, that's fine. That it goes to where it goes to. And if the foam pad falls out, well, they're very light, these foam pads, so it won't hurt. Tailbone long, kneecaps lifting, thigh muscles lifting, toes spreading, weight back into the heels. So just let your shoulders release away from the earlobes, and then slowly inhale and extend the arms up and bring the foam pad with you. So it's harder than it looks, this action. Ribs back, abdomen back, sides of the neck soft and long, stretch into your fingertips and then bring the hands down. Well done. Okay. So we're going to now come into an Uttanasana action, which is a forward bend, and you will need a chair or a couple of bricks for this. So I'm using a yoga chair here, but you can use any dining chair or kitchen chair. So if you just have a look, my feet are not touching the wall. My heels are about a foot away from the wall, with the toes very slightly turned in and the feet wider than hip width. So they're the width of my chair legs. It depends on the width of your chair, obviously. So we're going to lift through the legs, let the buttocks slide up the wall, and then take the hands down to the seat of the chair. Okay, so let's do that together. So find yourself a piece of wall. If you haven't got a piece of wall, you could maybe use a door. Just make sure that it's one that is firmly closed. Then take your heels about a foot away from the wall. If you need to have your mat, then you can place your mat there, because you don't want to do this if you've got any danger of slipping on the surface. But my legs are at an angle here. They're not vertical, they are just slightly angled back. I can't really show it here without holding onto the wall, but you can see that my legs are angled back because we're getting a different action in the forward bend with this angling of the legs. Turn the toes in slightly, press down into the outer edges of your feet. Kneecaps lifting, thigh muscles lifting, and you're just going to hinge forwards, place your hands onto the wall so that you can just lift your sitting bones up the wall and then place them back onto the wall, and then bring your hands down onto the seat of the chair. So although some of you can go further than this, we're working quite accurately here to broaden and open and lengthen the hamstrings in the backs of the thighs, so the backs of the legs. And you will see over time that these, if you do a consistent practice, these hamstring muscles start to not just lengthen, but they also become broader. And this is very useful for a lot of your other poses. Things like Shavasana, head balance, are quite dependent on the opening in the backs of the legs, but also a lot of the other poses, and of course the health of your back. All right, and now slowly coming up. So when the back is compromised, quite often it's because of tightness in these hamstrings, because they attach into the back of the pelvis and they kind of pull it down. So you find that you have this compensatory action on the pelvis, and this area of the back, which should be slightly curved, becomes flatter, and then that's not good for your spinal function. It can cause all sorts of problems. So I'm going to do this to the back of the chair. This is a little bit low, so you might find that it's better to use a window ledge or the back of a sofa, something like that. So I'm just going to show you how we're going to work. We're coming again into an Uttanasana action, but this time we're stretching forwards. So we're combining the action of the legs with an action in the upper back. But I don't want you to let the lumbar spine drop. Can you see that? I'm letting the lumbar spine drop there, and that will stretch my hamstrings, but it's not good for my lumbar spine. You have to lift this area here. These frontal pelvic bones have to lift, and the abdomen has to lift to the spine, and then the arms are straight and you work your armpits down towards the floor. Okay, so quite a lot to pack into that pose. Find yourself your space. Window ledge, sofa back, chair back, whatever you're using. The lid of a piano is also good. Line up the outer edges of the feet with the outer edges of the mat. Spread your toes. Push into the outer foot bones. Now, keep this tailbone long and lift your frontal pelvic bones up. And keep that lift through the frontal pelvic bones. You can keep your fingers there if you like. Gives a little bit of a reminder that those areas have to lift, 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 lift. Don't let them drop. Keep lifting them. Keep pointing the tailbone towards the floor. Don't let it point behind you. Stretch your arms out to your support. Keep lifting your frontal pelvic bones. Keep pointing your tailbone down to the floor rather than letting it stick out straight behind you. Lift your navel to your spine and move your armpits towards the floor. So all of these instructions can be very difficult to absorb when you start in your yoga. Don't worry about it. If you pick up something, that's lovely, and you can use that, and it may be useful for you and give you a better practice. Okay, slowly coming up. But it may be that there'll be a lot of instructions that you just find a bit confusing or you just don't understand. Really don't worry about it. At some point in your yoga practice, they will come back to you and you'll just think, now I know what that instruction meant. Okay, so stand in Tadasana, roll the shoulders back and down, lift your chest, and let the tailbone be long and weighted. So just stand in Tadasana for a moment while I demonstrate what we're going to do now. Okay, so we're going to come for Adho Mukha Svanasana, dog head down with the hands to the seat of a chair. You can do this to the seat of a sofa. I've got my chair against the wall. Best to have it like that because you don't want your chair flying off into the middle of the room when you're doing this, because there's quite a lot of pressure into that frontal chair seat. Okay, so let's do again. So we do this together. Lift the frontal pelvic bones up as you're coming into the pose. So hands to the front of the seat of the chair and start to walk back. The feet are hip width apart. Now it may be that your heels come down working in this way, but you still have to lift the frontal of the pelvic bones, broaden across the back of the pelvis. So it's as though the sacral region is really starting to open and broaden. Move the navel towards the spine and breathe. Okay, and slowly coming up. So we're going to come into a Malasana style action with this. You might need to have a couple of bricks to put your hands onto, and that's absolutely fine. But we're going to start out like this with the chest lifted, and then the body comes between the thighs, so the feet are quite wide, and you stretch forwards and see, can you keep all of the back of the pelvis, the back of the thighs onto the chair seat as you do that. So you can use a normal chair for this. That's absolutely fine. So the feet nice and wide, lift your chest, roll your shoulders back and down. Now we're still lifting these frontal pelvic bones up as we come forwards. And then you can stretch your hands forwards. Keep the back of the thighs, the back crease of the thighs onto that support. Extend forwards, lengthen forwards. Breathe, fine inhalation, fine exhalation through the nostrils. Just let the head and neck release. And slowly coming up. Dandasana, staff or stick pose. If you've got foam pads underneath, it might be prudent to also have something for your hands. So I've got a couple of foam pads here, so I would take those, or a couple of bricks, so that I can place my hands onto them. It may be that you can sit in this on the floor. Whichever you choose to do, you have to pull the flesh of the thighs, so the hamstring muscles lengthen as you pull them back, and pull the flesh of the buttocks back also. So we're opening in the back of the gluteal crease there. Now when we're sitting with our heels and feet to the wall, it's a little bit like your Halasana that you were doing. You're pressing your feet into the wall and you're lifting your chest. So this is quite a strong action on the abdominal region. You may be able to feel that. So lift your chest, roll your shoulders back and down, press your feet into the wall. So now anchor down with these frontal creases. Really move down here in the front crease of the thighs. We're going to release the hands and take them into Udvahastasana. So inhale, stretch the arms up. Keep your legs strong and active, rooting down with the very top of those thigh bones. So those thigh creases pressing into the floor. It's not the backs of the knees pressing into the floor, it's the thigh creases. And releasing down. So some of you who've decided not to use foam pads might be regretting that decision after that. Now, everybody has got to get rid of their foam pads now. We're just going to lean back. So I'm just going to show you how this is going to work. You'll bend your legs, you'll lean back slightly and lift your chest. Then it's as though your knees are super glued together. You lift one leg up and then the other leg up. And then we carry on. Okay, so sitting in your Dandasana, bend your knees and lean back slightly. So when we lean back, we have to move in this dorsal spine area that we've been working on today. So that dorsal spine moves in and the abdomen sinks down. So we have to move the abdomen down towards the spine as the dorsal spine lifts up towards the ceiling. Imagine that your knees are locked together on the inside. So grip the inner knees together, come up onto your heels and lift first of all your right foot off the floor, just so that it's horizontal to the floor, the shin. Okay, release that down and then lift the left leg. So we're not taking it beyond horizontal at this stage, it's just horizontal. Now don't lose the action of the upper back. Release the leg, lift up with the right leg to horizontal, abdomen down towards the floor, dorsal spine lifts in, release. You might get a little bit of cramp doing this. All right, left leg lifts up, chest lifted, broad across your collarbones, breathe, release down, right leg, lift up, breathing through the nasal passages. Release the right leg, left leg lifts, and releasing. Bring your knees into your chest, just let that lower back soften and release. Hold on to your knees for a moment. Let the eyes close, the breath steady and settle. We're going to press away from the wall. Now, if you need a belt for this, that's fine. You take a belt. We're going to hold behind the right thigh and then see if we can straighten that right leg up like that. So both feet to the wall, push away from the wall. It pulls the back of your trousers down a bit, but that lengthens in your lower back, so that's fine. If you need to, you could put something behind the head. Bring the right leg in, hold on behind the right thigh, and then stretch your right leg up. Now, if it's difficult, you get hold of a belt, you place it around the back of that thigh. So I'm just going to show that version. So if your hamstrings are a bit tight, it can be quite tough getting hold of the thigh, so you can always put a belt around the back of the thigh like that. Releasing and going to the other side. Bring your left leg in, interlock the fingers behind the thigh, or use your belt and stretch the left leg up. So just let the breath be steady. Keep pushing the back of the thigh into the hands, extending into the inner heel of the raised leg. Make sure that the downward leg foot is pushing into the wall if you're using the wall. You can do this without a wall. It just gives a little bit of extra contact. All right, and releasing and rolling to the right side. Prone Shavasana. So you lie down on your tummy, you let your toes come together, but let the heels come apart. You fold your arms onto your blanket. You can use a folded towel. And just let the nose come off the front edge of your blanket. So with this action, just let the breath steady and settle. Let the breath flow, fine inhalation, fine exhalation through the nostrils. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Namaste.